Welcome to selfdiscoverymedia.com, where we discover the communities that are making a difference in the lives of others. Our self-discovery is something we are all making on our life's journey. Here you will find the people that will be your guidance, that will be your inspiration, that will be there for you in support on your journey of life. Do enjoy. Our next show is... Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Ignite Your Heart and Soul right here on selfdiscoverymedia.com. I am your host, Sarah Troy, and my wonderful guest is Alexander Laszlo. Yes, I had his father, Irvin Laszlo, on a few weeks ago, and I truly do ask you to go and listen to that show because it really was quite something. But Alexander's his own man, and he has his own purpose in life, and he has his own passion and conviction, and that is what we're going to be talking about today. He says his why. What brings me alive and into service of life in the world? I want to learn how to human well. It appears to me as a species we are not humaning very well at present. What does it mean to be a true expression of the universe, to express our full cosmic potential? This is his quest, which is captured in his forthcoming book, Syntony Sense, the Evolutionary Intuition for World Changes. Of course, the real joy is in humaning well together. If you ever have seen murmuration of starlings whirling with exquisite grace and unity in the evening sky, you can imagine what it would be like to dance this way with all creation from moment to moment. Most certainly, we are all in this together. We've all got a beautiful instrument to play. We are all part of the dance and the rhythm of life, and it's just a question of tapping in, doing it together, being the orchestra, right? It's not about, as we said before the show, not about John Wayne coming in and saving the day by shooting it up. It's about, this is my instrument, where is the orchestra? Let's play together. Let's create a symphony that resonates out and envelops and invites everyone to the party. Welcome, Alexander.
Thank you so much, Sarah. What a delight. I'm so happy to be here with you.
I'm delighted to have you here. I am, most certainly am. We had a chat before we started this show, and we both agree that rhythm of life is very, very important. And I think one of the problems that we have today is this, everything is about boxing or pedestaling or compartmentalizing instead of allowing a flow. Yes, the structure is important. A roof needs to go on four walls and a foundation. But if we could get out of this trying to label, box, and limit ourselves and open up to the wind, to the water, to the beautiful cosmic energy that is out there, we will understand the flow of life and allow ourselves to dance to that rhythm of life. It's a beautiful place to be, isn't it?
It certainly is. I think this is what is about being alive.
Mm.
We talk about sometimes, peace. Hopefully not just sometimes.
Yes.
But
Hopefully it's there as a core within us all
that's
the
right.
time.
That's right. But often we think of peace as this static thing, like
Mm,
rest in peace, RIP.
mm,
It's like peace and quiet, like
mm,
stillness. For me, peace is this effervescence. It's a joyful flow. It's ecstasy of
mm.
engagement. But the key there is engagement. It's not solitary ecstasy. It's
Right.
connected, interconnected, a sense of belonging. Ram Dass once said, I think beautifully, he's often quoted as having said, "We're all just walking each other home."
Mm.
And this sense of accompanying, and again, there's the musical component of accompanying
Yes, yes,
and of knowing how to be taking on leadership, but also taking on good followership. It's important,
yes.
to be able to do both, and we all have roles in that.
And sometimes we're the soloist, and sometimes we're the background, and it's all of those roles are okay. You're not diminished by any one of them. There is a time where it's not your instrument to play, it's backing somebody else's instrument, but it's all about the rhythm, the dance. Are people moving to what you're playing? And yes, we're talking a music method because you are a musician. I've only seen you play the flute. I don't know if you play anything else. Do you play anything else?
Well, I began with the piano, not surprising.
Not
Uh,
surprising now.
that's right. From the age of 7 to 11, I played the piano, and I remember my lessons with Mrs. Osborne. Um, but we were moving around so much, my family. I went to 8 different schools before I finished high school. Imagine that.
Right.
And it was just too tiring for me to carry the piano with me everywhere. So I switched to the flute. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, and flute is just, it's a very ethereal instrument. I think it's, it's a very metaphysical way. It just hits a different vibration in the soul and in the spirit. I think it
Yeah.
speaks to them in such a way that it gives the soul and the spirit permission and a voice to be.
Well, I have 2 of my friends here with me. I have both my little bamboo flute, which was given to me as a gift. It's from Indonesia, and then I also have here my larger. You see, it doesn't even fit in the frame here. Look how long this thing is. But this is a walking stick flute,
Wow.
and so it's a staff, so I can walk with this. And when I come to a nice place, I can stop, and again, the moment can play me. And this is from my grandmother, actually. It's a scarab.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, and I just put it in there in the top. But yeah, so this idea of accompanying and of always being in conversation with life. I think this is the word that you use. I think is beautiful. This actionism. Being an actionist, and this about engaging and standing up and showing up and connecting. I think this is what we can all do. We need to connect in the orchestra with the music, with the audience, and with, of course, the other players.
Yes.
Right? So all of this, I think, is beyond that still point. I mean, still the rests in music are so important, as you know.
Yeah.
So the silence is very important. And yet it's all about that flow, that exploration. And I think this is part of for me, a little reconceptualization. We think of ourselves as human beings. The notion of being often is like, we've arrived. I just have to be. I'm here. And I love to think of myself as a human becoming.
Yes.
Because I'm never there yet. I'm like, what am I in the
alignment,
process?
right? The alignment of the cosmic and the human self. It's
Yeah.
a journey in itself
Right.
of understanding that alignment and what the human. It's not just the human spirit. The human spirit can do anything. What can the human body do with that spirit, with that cosmic human spirit inside of it?
Right.
And how we should not limit ourselves, because we have limited ourselves, and we're extraordinary creatures with so many abilities. If we just allowed ourselves to explore and be a little wondrous and open up to something we don't understand, because that is what really is the excitement of life, of discovering.
But you were very much about in your work and in your shows and your presentations about authenticity, right? And
Yes.
of doing this in such a way which is not faking, not trying, not efforting.
Not one-upping.
It's right, and it's not even needed. There's no ecstasy in that if you're trying it.
Yes.
You're not being flowed. And this is, you read a little part there in the introduction about this notion of humaning. And I think,
lovely word. I love it.
You know where that comes from, Sarah? It comes from my having read something from Alan Watts, and he had this observation that in the springtime, and we're here in Buenos Aires in the summer, where it's very hot right now.
We could do with a little of that warmth. Send it on over.
Yeah, I know, different parts of the globe. But he says, in the springtime, the tree doesn't produce leaves, right? He says that's a wrong way of thinking about it. Wrong. But anyways, he says truly what the tree is doing is it's leafing. And he says, in fact, in the springtime, it's not as if we're moving into spring. It's that part of the world, that hemisphere is springing. It's putting it into those verbs. So this made me think, how are we humaning? How is the universe humaning through me? And of course, it's humaning through all of us. It's not just humaning through me. So
Right.
how are we being a true expression of the universe through this portal, through this frame of our human becoming
Yes.
now? That's fun to explore.
And you know, when I've said that 2020 was a time of reflection. It was
Mm,
a time to really look at what was important in life. It was a
mm,
time to level the playing field. You know, we
mm,
looked at our frontline workers, we looked at our essential workers, people who'd just been kind of treated not terribly well or respectfully, and now they are our heroes. It was a time for us to appreciate family, time for us to really look at, is what I'm doing really serving me or serving anyone else? So that reflection, that gift of reflection and that renewal, it was a wonderful time to seed.
mm,
Seed what you want to see grow. And 2021 for me most certainly is watering and nurturing those seeds into fruition.
mm,
And this is where the actionism comes in. You know, we've had our contemplation time. This is the time of actionism. Now, that doesn't mean actionism. We don't need to
mm,
do it with angst. We've had that. We've heard that record. It's been overplayed. You know,
mm,
we can do this with loving intent, with kindness, with openness. And I think one of the most important things is that we learn to open up like a flower ourselves and not be afraid of opening up.
mm, mm. You know, you're reminding me of another powerful metaphor that goes along with this music that we've been talking about, which I would like to return to at one point as well.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe it's a leitmotif. We'll come back to it. But the it's this idea of gardening, you know, in a
Mm.
way. The whole earth is a garden, you
Yes.
know, in this way. And how are we not ecosystem engineers? You see, I think this is what we've been playing at for so
Mm.
long. We're going to terraform this planet. We're going to, you know, we're going to pave over this area and we're going to wipe out this species of plants here and plant another one. Palm oil, right?
Yeah.
Or palm plant oil. So these kind of things where we are just imposing our vision and our will rather than being part of this symphony, being part
Mm.
of what is going on. And I think this idea of being ecosystem curators, I like
Mm.
the idea of, you know, being a curator, like in an art museum. The curator, take aside the whole the political aspects of that job because it gets very political, but truly the art of curating in a museum, for example, is not to make the art itself, because the artist comes with their exhibition that they put into the museum, but the curator positions it,
Mm.
sets the lighting, creates the path for the visitor to the museum to walk through,
The flow.
and allows it to come alive because they're empathizing with both the art in its best light and its best flow and the experience of
Mm.
moving through that. How can we be curators of life in
Right.
that sense? How can we curate the emergence of thrivability? That's the what
Mm.
I like to think of that. How are we curators of, and by the way, for me, emergence
Mm.
is not the same as planning. Because if you're planning, you know, what we're going to do next year, this year, whenever, then what happens is just a fulfillment of something you already know because you're planning it.
Right.
But curating emergence, the conditions for emergence, if it's truly emergent, you couldn't have foreseen it. You might have foreseen something like it, that something is going to blossom, but you don't know exactly how. You're not overly defining it, you're not micromanaging. And I think this is an important part of the kind of music we play together.
Right. We're allowing,
Indeed,
right?
indeed.
You know, we can have a blueprint vision of what we want to achieve. We're giving the universe that blueprint of, and it's not so much the vision of the construction, but how we wish to feel in that construction. And if we set forth with that intent and allow, one foot in front of the other. Explore. Every single step you're taking has a meaningful purpose. The people you meet along the way, you are meant to meet, you're meant to learn from, or you're meant to serve. And as you are gathering on your journey moving forward, you are creating, you are building that beautiful structure because you've allowed yourself to emerge into the experience of life, not the dictation of life.
It's beautiful. I mean, it's both allowing and being allowed, right?
Yes.
It's this, the moment to moment is also, humaning you. It's
Mm,
allowing, it's creating what some write about as an affordance, creating the affordance of the moment,
mhm.
right? Which then allows us to flow into that moment. And this, well, here's something. So I wonder what you think about this. I actually, and this may shock you, I actually don't think that the orchestra is the best metaphor.
Okay.
I think the improvisational jazz ensemble might be better.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. Because in the orchestra, you tend to play a piece that is already written,
Mm, true.
and it has an end. And the most you can do is, if you want to keep playing, is either play another piece or repeat that piece.
Hmm.
But everyone is reading off the score and are playing together that which is written. And of course, there's so much creativity and artistic expression in how you do that and how
Hmm.
you flow together. And my sense is that the universe is a grand improvisational jazz ensemble.
Hmm.
We have to know how to play our instruments. That's true. We have to actually practice. And there are practices that we can do to be able to tune ourselves, to be able to listen well, as you're saying as well. The art of listening
Mm.
is so important, not just blasting our own thoughts and ideas, but listening and co-creating. But to do that in an interactive dance, for me, as that is an exploration, it then truly is an improvisational jazz ensemble. And that's exciting because of course you're looking for melodies that emerge, you're looking for, but there's truly emergence here. You
Yes.
don't know what is coming. What do you think of that?
Well, actually, my cousin-in-law is Dave Brubeck's son, Darius Brubeck, who I had on last year, and he's a jazz quartet. And I hear you. I see exactly where you're coming from there. But it reminds me of a wonderful experience I had in Rome many years ago, back in '75, where I was taken to this almost knock on the door Joe sent me, and it was a kind of a not even a nightclub, just kind of a room. And it's where the musicians went after the performance. And they would just go and sit there and somebody's playing and somebody would join in. And it was just all, in the moment. And it was truly transforming, transcending. And, nobody was following any sheets. Nobody was saying, let's play this or play that. They were just joining in into each other's vibe
Ah,
and just playing the music. And it's 40 something years ago and it still resonates with me
right.
quite considerably. So there is a place for an orchestra, yes, most
Yeah.
certainly, but I truly do agree that the jazz quartet or just the musicians, um what is the word for them just coming together and ad-libbing?
Jamming.
Jamming, thank you. Just jamming together, that is when you really are getting the nectar. It's the heart and soul is playing and they're in sync with each other,
Right.
right?
And are
And
you
it just,
being played or are you playing? It's
yeah,
that kind of like, it's
yeah.
almost as if you're in such flow
Hmm.
that it reminds me, Sarah, of, those moments of intimacy with the universe
Yes.
where your boundaries disappear.
Yeah.
You have this sense of expansion, of connection. This can happen truly in intimate interactions uh, with a loved one. Let's say that you are with your love, and you are skin to skin, and you are just holding each other and lying there, and time passes, and after a while, you might not know where does your skin end and
Mm,
where does their skin begin.
mhm.
Truly, it's if you don't move, it's very hard to know.
Yeah.
That type of experience is available to us in conversation,
Mhm.
in our day-to-day engagement with the world, in this sense of interconnected emergence and flowing,
Mm,
right? Rather than striving, and it's like the people, the cavemen and women who would be in the morning, willing the sun to rise. Oh, it's going, okay, and then it arrives, and they're like, oh, thank goodness. But we don't have to.
yeah.
We don't have to. This is part of our flowed interconnection. And once we know that we don't have to force these things, that we can be part of the flow, when
Mm.
we truly connect with that grace, that intimacy, that listening ability to human well. And there are practices for these kind of things.
We need to feel it, not think it.
Exactly.
I know that most certainly for me, if I get stuck in on my thoughts will have me on a treadmill going around and around and going, yes, but, yes, but. And
Yeah.
I would say, sit on the butt. Right? It's when you can feel it, you feel the thoughts, when it comes
Yeah.
from the source.
Yeah.
When it comes from the source and resonates with the heart and truth, and the spirit wants to go into actionism, the mind will know what it needs to know when it needs to know it. And
Yeah.
that's when I know I'm in my truth. That's where I know I'm on the right road. That's where I know I'm
Wow.
in the right space, right? But if I go from the thoughts down, all I'm going to do is confuse myself and talk myself out of something or into something I shouldn't.
That's right. Relaxing into it. I mean, there are all
Yes.
these meditative practices. I have this, one of my favorite books is this book called The Other Way to Listen by, it's backwards here, by Beard Baylor and Peter Parnell, right? And look how thin this is.
Mm-hmm.
And it is actually a children's book because it has lots of pictures and not many words. But it is about this way of listening to the stars, listening
Mm-hmm.
to the corn as you're walking by a field, listening to the wind, to the rocks, and what the rocks are saying to the lizards who are sitting. But this kind of listening is not just with the ears, right?
Yes.
It is really a whole being, the whole creature listening. And here, Sarah, is where I think it gets really interesting because we can also listen through and with each other.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
think we can create a field that allows us to be more connected when we are well held. Of Ubuntu. You've spent
Yes.
time
Yes.
in South Africa. So the Sosha and the Zulu have this this credo, this philosophy of life. Um, I am because we are,
Mm-hmm.
and also the corresponding we are because I am. There's a responsibility, a
Yes.
response ability to be part of this big narrative of co-creation in the universe. When we move into that actionistic frame together, not saying, I'm going to, like we talked about the whole John Wayne,
Yes.
idea of, I'll do it by myself,
Mm-hmm.
I'll settle everything. How do we do this? How can we be in the collective hero mode? I think that for me is in this century the true challenge for humanity to really live into its collective intelligence. And that intelligence isn't just here.
No.
It's an intelligence of the heart as well as an intelligence of the gut, an informed intuition.
Yeah.
Mm.
Mm. The definition of a leader
Mm.
isn't to dictate to everyone else what to do,
Mm.
but is to ignite the leadership within each and every one of
Beautiful,
us.
beautiful. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. I think that is the dance that
Mm.
it's otherwise it's not a true conversation. It's a monologue with people nodding.
Yes.
So, it's
Blah, 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 blah.
how do we engage where I come out, I come out of a conversation like I'm having with you, where I'm saying, I know things, I've seen things, I've heard things in this conversation that would never have occurred to me on my own. So this is
Yeah.
what is enriching. It
Yes.
is that interplay. It's the music we make together.
Yeah, exactly. It's the responding to one another isn't reacting to one another. And I think
Yes.
we've been taught to listen to react or to one up. If we communicate with each other in response to how I feel, and I'm sharing that feeling back, and that the feeling itself begins to dance, it becomes music itself. That is the rhythm of life that we're talking about. It's the constant flow of life. Everything in life has a flow. Everything in our
Mm,
body, the oxygen, the blood, the fiber optics, everything in our body has to flow. If it stops flowing,
mm.
it's blocked chi, blocked energy. It
Exactly.
then starts to break down. So shouldn't our conversation be in flow? Shouldn't our thoughts and our feelings constantly be in flow? We can pause for a moment and reflect on a feeling, but it doesn't mean stay there.
Mm, mm. Indeed, that's the difference between the rest in peace kind of peace, like the
Mm,
peace and quiet, and the effervescence of being, in a forest or in a glade where the sun is dappling through the trees and the grass is waving back and forth and a butterfly. Okay, it's very idyllic. But the point is, there's a lot of movement there, and there is
exactly,
peace.
exactly.
That is, for me, that's a beautiful
Yeah.
expression of peace. I have spent, and I don't know if you know this, I have spent now 37 years in the martial arts.
Mm,
Right? So that's another area of great engagement. And you mentioned chi, right? My engagement with the martial arts has always been to understand flow, both the
mm,
internal energy flows and these questions of self mastery, of you know, the mind over the body and the spirit over the mind, in order to be able to do things that seem incredible, but are perfectly understandable when you train. And again, this is what we were talking about earlier, even with the instrument. There are practices of breathing with the martial arts, playing the flute, there's breathing for sure. There are practices of breathing in connection with the universe. There are practices of uh, calming the monkey mind, as you were saying
mm-hmm,
before,
mm-hmm,
and of being able to listen well, not second guessing, not
mm-hmm,
getting stuck. I love the expression of, the difference between a groove and a rut.
mm,
What's the difference between a groove and a rut? It's really, they're the same thing, except in a rut, you're stuck. The wheels can't get out of that. You're stuck in this, and a groove, you're jamming to it.
mm-hmm.
It's good and it's taking you and it's enlivening, right? So these are good things. How do we do that? It has to do with our engagement,
Yes.
our quality of being. And there's the authenticity, the integrity, the humaning.
Mm. If the authenticity and the humaning isn't about you trying to be someone else or somebody else's image. We use the word authenticity a lot, and a lot of people I don't think really truly understand what it means.
Mm,
It it's
mm,
be your own beautiful divine self, not measured by anyone else.
mm,
I like Don Ru's four agreements.
mm, mm,
Speak your word with integrity. Do not assume, ask.
mm,
Don't take things personally, right?
mm,
And do your best according to what your own consciousness says is your
mm.
best. I think we've lived a life so much on this reflection to be someone else or measured by someone else. And what we've done is sold ourselves short of how absolutely awesome and abundant we really are, and how incredibly we are in our beautiful imperfections, because that's what makes us unique. It doesn't matter if everybody plays the flute. It's how you play it. What music is coming out of there is coming from your source, coming from your heart and your soul. And so it's stop trying to measure yourself by somebody else's expectation, because you will always sell yourself short doing that.
See, that's the key for me, and it's we have so many expectations, especially of ourselves,
Oh, yeah.
and wow. how is it to be able to live without expectations? Can we live without? That doesn't mean that you don't have hopes,
Mm-hmm.
that you don't have dreams,
Mm-hmm.
right? But the expectation is like, if that doesn't happen, I will be disappointed in myself or in the situation or so on. And when you go to a party, or well, I'm thinking back in my more party youth
Yes. Party?
days.
What's that? I haven't been
Right,
to one
yes,
in
right, right.
ages.
In ages, right. And not this time of, not during these times,
No,
but
no. Zoom party.
that's right, soon party, thinking about these things. But I remember when I would go to parties, and
Back in the day.
when I was young. Anyway, the if I would go and say, oh, this is gonna be the best party, and I would get so ready, and I would like prepare, and I would actually think of things that I'm gonna say at the party, and then, oh goodness, then I would go, and I would just, usually it would be disappointing, and I would, nothing would go the way I thought it, because I had my expectations of how it should go, right? And when it
Right.
didn't go that way, other things happened. I wasn't actually open to what was happening,
Right.
because I had my expectations of what
Mm-hmm.
should be. But there are times when I didn't want to go to a party. My friends would come by and say, "Hey, let's go to a party." And I'd be, "No, no," like, "Come on, it's no, I'm not even ready. Come on, just come." Like, I would go, and I had nothing, just go. Wow, often
Yes.
then I the best time. So how
Yes.
can we show up in life in this way? Which I don't mean to suggest that we just show up willy-nilly without any sense of engagement or vision or heart, but
Or excitement.
or excitement,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or even hope
Mm.
and joy.
Anticipation.
Exactly, beautiful. Anticipation is so wonderful, but the expectation, I think, is
Mm.
killer.
Yeah.
Expectation is when, and we have expectations of others, of
Oh.
our children, of our
Uh-huh.
parents, and of ourselves,
Mm.
and that I don't think allows us to human well. Doesn't
No.
allow us to show up in our fullness.
Do you also think too that this conditioning of, by this age you must be this, by that age you
Mhm.
have to have done that, by this age, if not, you're a failure. I was a late bloomer. I only started doing this at 57. I
Yeah,
finally
yeah, yeah,
found my niche, my calling, my passion, my conviction, which
yeah,
I've
yeah, yeah.
committed to for 8.5 years now. I had to wait for technology to come about. I had to wait for me to be ready. I had to
Mhm.
have those life experiences to get here to do what I do. And I think we are seeing this today so beautifully. People of age going, I've done my duty. I did my expectation. This is now time for me to do what my passion is, what my love is. But why do we have to wait for the permission? Why do we have to wait for a certain age to do it? Why can't we have that when we're young? We can. We've just been told we can't.
Right, indeed. And this over conditioning, in the area of social systems design, which is an area where I'm formally engaged, there are two great pitfalls. One is the under conceptualization of your potential.
Mhm.
We say, "Oh no, we shouldn't try to do that. No, we shouldn't. Let's
Mm.
not
Who do
dream.
you
That's
think
too
you
big."
are? Yes.
That's right, exactly. And the other is the over constraint of the design. Okay, it has to be. Let's
Mm.
immediately make sure it fits within this box,
Yep.
whatever. Over constraints, over constraint, and under conceptualization. When we build that into our life ways and all the things that we do, we limit, because no, that's too. I would be too. That's not me. I can't
Mm.
express that. I can't sing. Why should I even? No, I shouldn't. I can't dance. No, I can't. No, and then you end up being on the sidelines, watching
Yes.
things move, and I think that happens a
Way
lot.
too much.
And then the other is then that the leaders, so called, right, will then say, "But I will set the expectations for you."
Hmm.
And then, but we willing to accept those things, Sarah. And I think
I
that's
know.
where, as you said, the allowance, I think, is a beautiful word that you were bringing into this. That's very important, to have that allowance for yourself. What being a failure, what does that mean?
Yes.
When my daughter, who is now 21 and who is my teacher in many, many things, Kalia, when she was growing up, although Kalia and I have an agreement that we will never grow up. That's
Right.
right. Because there are
Keep your
things that
spirit
say,
young.
oh, there are things that say adults only. And, we're like, that's usually questionable things,
Yeah.
right? So, so no, adulting. But I was always interested in not saying, well, I hope she's going to be boom. I hope
Mm,
she's going to be able to, she's going to, oh, look, I can tell she's going to, none of that.
yeah.
Only is she
That's
going to be
imposing.
happy?
Hmm.
Right. Is she going to do the things that
Hmm.
bring her alive?
Hmm.
And how can we bring that to ourselves, that allowance, and to others? I think but it means really a relearning or re-engaging with that kind of allowance, Sarah, because we have been conditioned in school and we've been conditioned in so many ways to either live in fear of failure or according to the expectations of others. And
Oh, I definitely was labeled with that because after 12 years of schooling, I only completed 6. I was a
mm,
sickly child, and every time I became
mm,
sick, into bed for weeks at a time. And
mm,
I'd go back to school and they'd think I was a new girl, you know? So at
mm,
16, I just exempted myself from school because
mm,
what was the point of me being there? So
mm,
life became my lesson.
mm,
Experience became my lesson. Did I make some mistakes? Boy, did I go down some wrong roads at times. But my conscience always brought me back. I suffered a lot from self-esteem for a long time because I didn't
mm,
live up to everybody else's expectation of what they wanted me to be.
mm.
And it took a long time for me to stop bending myself into a pretzel to please everyone else and to realize I'm never going to please everyone. I am never going to be what they want me to be. I am what I am. Love Popeye's saying, I am what I am. Take me for who I am. I won't be offended if you don't. But it took me many, many years to get there. And I don't want to see people waste 50 years of their life on that journey. Get there
Right.
earlier, please, because when you immerse yourself into who you are and what gift you have, and that every so-called failure is a lesson. The failure is when
Right.
you never get back up again and you give up. But when you look at every mistake you make as a lesson, what did I learn from this? How can I apply this to my next phase of my journey? How can I allow myself now with what I know to move forward with more clarity? It's the immersive. I've always moved forward. However many times I've been knocked down, I got back up and moved forward, maybe shakily, sometimes on one leg. But the whole thing is about the momentum moving forward. But my
Mm,
freedom came when I
mm.
said, I am no longer going to live up to anyone's expectation other than my own.
Mm. Sarah, I think that maybe we could talk a little bit about some of these practices because you're mentioning. I think that others might be interested in this as well.
Mhm.
How how can we, what are some exercises, so to speak, that can help us develop this syntony sense? I think this notion of dynamic harmony, of flowing with the moment, but not just with whatever. It's not hedonism or some
Mhm.
kind of momentary gratification. The idea is to be able to tune yourself so that you are humaning, right? So you're an
Yes.
expression of the universe. And that means, identifying those false attractors, the ones where say, hey, how come you're not being the way I expect you to be? Or how
Right.
come you're not living? Those are false attractors. And they live in you. But the thing is, we don't listen to
Mhm.
those aspects in ourselves. For me, Sarah, when something, and I live for these moments, when something is truly, as I would express it, in syntony, in this dynamic harmony. Not, because harmonies are wonderful. Harmony is very important, but harmony is
Yes.
often static. It's like a
Mhm.
chord, boom, that's
Mhm.
a harmony. But when you put the chord over time, boom, 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 then you got a melody that
Yes.
emerges. That melody, when it changes and emerges, you get that, especially with a jam session, if it is truly beautiful, if it is truly something that has heart and soul, then there is this quality of syntony. How can we lead our life like that?
Yeah.
I think I think there is a way for this everyday shamanism we were talking a little bit about before
Mm-hmm.
the program as well. It's not just for others
Right.
to do the transmutation of crisis into opportunity, or of sickness into health, or of difficulty into joy. We can do that. We can do this. It's not a forcing. It's more like a loving.
Mm-hmm.
You can't, when you're courting or when you're loving, it doesn't help to be able to say, you will love me. Here, I'm telling you. No, it's you can't force
No.
people. No. So, but you can create the conditions that
Yes.
invite, the
Yes.
dance, that invite the
Exactly.
dance. And this is where I think, when I can quiet that mind that you were talking about,
Mm-hmm.
that is all the time second guessing and saying, well, should I? Or come on, I really shouldn't wait up. They told me I should. And all of that. When I can
Mm-hmm.
quiet that, then there is something in me when it feels right, that I can almost hear. It's like a bell of, this is true. Like, bicycle wheel, when it's well trued,
Mm-hmm.
the old, now they have all kind of bicycle wheels, but bicycle wheel that had the spokes on it, and you would have to true the spokes, because otherwise they'd be a wobble. So
Mm-hmm.
if you loosen some and you tighten others, you can get it so that it runs true. It
Mm-hmm.
spins without a wobble. How can we spin without wobble? That, I think, is part of, for me, a good metaphor for the syntony. And we know when we are spinning without a wobble, it feels in a certain way. There's a sense, there's almost this tone, this bell that goes off inside me when I see, for example, others humaning well, a little child smiling without any pretense. It lights up my heart,
Yes.
and I can feel that's authentic right
Mm-hmm.
there, right?
It's truth.
Or
It's
it's
truth.
it's truth. It's the
Yes.
true expression of the universe, true
Yes.
humaning well.
Yes.
And sometimes
True
I see it.
humanizing,
Right,
they
right, right,
really
right.
are, living in their humanity, in their honesty, their
That's true.
authenticness, their truth.
Exactly.
They are being.
Indeed. And being almost a universal being, not just a
Mm,
human kind of species
exactly.
thing. It's
Yes.
something that is much more interconnected. I see, for example, an athlete doing, or a musician
Mm,
doing something, and it does it with such true expression and there's not the ego of, oh, look, let me
no.
show you, I'm showing off.
Right.
It's just it's the ecstasy of the celebration
The
of the
joy.
universe,
Mm,
right? The awe and the
yes.
mystery. Now,
Yes.
when we can do that in our day, and it means, if we're under stress, it's very difficult to do that.
Mm,
If there are things that are pressures in life, and there always are, but how can we take those moments to calm, to center, and to listen to that tone, those deeper harmonies of the universe that bring us back into center? There was this whole program, right? The source of
yes.
wonder, right?
Yes.
And sourcing that. I think these are practices that we can do, but we can't do it if we're all time rushing and all time distracted and all time on our cell phones.
Yeah, it
We
goes
can't.
back to the listening again, but
Yeah.
listening to hear. The
Mm.
wonderful thing about the source of wonder, which all people have to do on self-discovery media, is just put in the source of wonder, and the whole four days of programming is there, is that it went from one flow to the other. And it's some people were 5 minutes, some people were longer, but everybody was expressing themselves from their honesty, from their authentic selves, from their passion of who and what they are and what they do. And by listening to everyone, you are rising up with each one, like just like in a symphony of the crescendo, before it comes back down again. And you're left with the food for thought, but your soul's been fed. Your
Mm.
spirit's been fed. If we're willing to listen to the people, this is why I do what I do. If we're willing to listen to the people that share their beautiful journey, they share their why, share their wonders, their own divine expertise, their source of energy, we absorb that and it becomes our tools in enabling us to walk forward. with more clarity, more understanding. So The Source of Wonder was an absolutely beautiful program, and I love the fact the way they did the Christmas one too, which just
Mm,
Christmas wishes as well. And
mm,
it opens us up. Isn't that what we need to do right now? Stop. Take the blinkers off. Open up. Listen to the source of your energy, your soul.
mm,
That's how I
mm,
found myself back to myself, is I listened
mm,
to my cosmic soul
mm,
and allowed that to humanize me, because I was having a battle with the human self.
mm, mm, mm,
And
mm.
it's only when my soul took the reins that I could find peace within my humanity.
I think all that you're saying about this connecting with source, of course, which was a big component of that set of programs through the Goy Peace Foundation and the Fuji Declaration and the Club of Budapest. So all of those organizations bringing this framework and
Mm,
this invitation to source, as you're saying,
mm,
I think there's almost there's I don't know, there's a movement of
mm,
soul.
mm-hmm.
But for me, it has this component where we can, I imagine, whether we're actually sitting here like this with the people who are engaging with us now. I almost see ourselves in a circle. I tend to
Yes.
think of ourselves in a circle somehow.
Yes, yes, yes. Everything's round.
That's right. So we're sitting in this circle with lots of individuals, and we're all kind of tuning together because we're
Yes.
listening, and we're not just listening to critique, we're
Right.
listening to understand and to co-create. It's a very
Yes.
different sense. It's not a debate, it's
No.
a conversation,
Yeah.
it's a dialogue. And in that, it's not just with each other, but it's with source.
Yes.
So in one way, we're connecting our soul sense. And you used a word when you were talking with in your interview with Irvin, with my father. You talked about, people talk about mindset or
Mm-hmm.
skill sets. Some talk about heart set. You talk about soul set.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that expression. Um, and this, the soul connecting to source is, I almost see that in the circle. We're all like looking in, and for some reason I'm looking down. I don't know why. Source. I'm looking. It could be the cosmos. I mean, there's no up or down
Yes.
in the
Right.
universe. But the point is, we're
All a big
connecting to
ball.
the cosmos, right? To the cosmic heart in some
Yes.
way, right? To that beat, to that pulse of life that is in the cosmos, not just on the planet, right? So there's that connection, and that then, when we do this together in
Mm.
the harmonies of the jazz ensemble or the
Yeah.
orchestra, we then connect with each other in a kind of horizontal way. So
Yes.
there's that depth and there's the connection, because I have a colleague here, Christian Plebs, who says, none of us is as smart as all of us.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where, when we can give in, allow for, that, as you say again, allow
Yeah.
for that collective wisdom. Is not just intelligence, because it's a heart based and sourced
Yeah.
wisdom, but that can be done together so
Yes.
much more, how can I say, authentically and powerfully, than if we try to do this by ourselves. But we're
Right.
taught in school so often, we do our tests by ourselves, and everything
Mm.
is. In fact, when I brought here to, sorry for going on, but just mention one other thing. When I was brought here to Argentina, I was brought to design and implement a doctoral program in leadership and systemic innovation. That was the name of the program that I designed and I implemented and got accredited and all of that. And one of the things I instituted in that program was that the dissertation, the doctoral thesis, could be done together.
Mm-hmm.
So students would have to show how each did, but they could have one common project with a group of students who were then working on it together from different aspects. They would have to.
Collaboration. Mm-hmm.
Exactly, co-creation. So how can we create more of this dynamic, where so much in our society is about strident individualism and about
Mm-hmm.
self-righteousness?
Mm-hmm.
And I think this era is past, and this time, as you are pointing to, this 2021, as we've come through 2020, is a little bit questioning the validity and showing us the bankruptcy of
Yes.
this way of being through the strident individualism and the self-righteous demands that we have, my rights, even my country, right or wrong.
Right.
It doesn't make sense anymore.
No.
We're in this together, and
Yeah.
we will.
I've got a couple of responses bursting at the seams here. One is that I do not believe you can actually ignite the heart unless, or you can't hear the soul until you've ignited the heart.
Mm,
And because the heart is the human gate to the soul, and if the heart is open, the soul can speak to it.
mm,
That's one thing. But the other is, let's just take this pandemic. Never in the history of time has it been a global thing that everybody in the world has been affected by it at the same time. But never has it been an invitation. Ego, money, power, put aside, how all these countries have come together with these vaccines, working, collaborating, sharing together, and in the space of 8 months, produced vaccines that normally would take 4 years or more. That
mm,
collaboration will save lives. That collaboration shows us of how, when working together, without the ego, without the one-upmanship, without the power or the greed or the narcissism, how coming together, how much more powerful we are, how much more powerful. You put your hands together like this and try and pull it apart. You just can't. Why can we not come together? Each and every one of us is an important cell in the body, in the
mm,
universal
mm,
body, in the human
mm,
body. It is
mm,
up to us to make sure that this cell is plump and juicy and can contribute to the whole structure. So that's where the I becomes important. I am important in who I am and what I'm contributing, but the emphasis is the contribution, the service to one another as mankind, in to all of us being able to grow from this. So I think we've touched on something with this whole virus thing where we needed to come together in support of each other, and we needed to collaborate together, and we have shown those people who have risen up and shown other people how to rise up. That invitation, that's, I think, what COVID was all about, was a time to stop doing what we were doing and a time to reflect what we need to do. And this is the time of actionism, where we need to step up and be the shaman
mm,
that we all are. We were talking about this earlier.
mm,
When you ignite that soul to heart, to spirit, into actionism, you are being the shaman. You don't need to
mm,
go to one, they can guide you, but
mm.
you are the shaman you seek. You are the
Exactly.
universe will give you any answer you want. Just open up and allow and be prepared to listen openly.
Mm, mm. No, that's powerful and beautiful, and a message that we need to take to heart. What you're saying, Sarah, because often we can say, "Oh yeah, okay, fine, fine. That's maybe somebody else," or we can hear the nice words, but
Act
to
on it.
really embody that
Mm,
and then to enact it, it does involve a shift of
yeah.
our habits, and
Yes.
it's so hard to shift habits. But the only way to do it is to really also be convinced that we can do this everyday shamanism as you're talking about, and we can do it better together. We talked about Ubuntu a little bit earlier,
Mm,
and this idea of coming together, as you were talking about now, in this post-COVID times that we're moving into, this doesn't mean reverting back to the strident individualism, right? It
no,
is, it is
the old
about.
norm is dead.
That's right, and we've also seen that it gives rise to the kind of situations that are exactly these of COVID or of species destruction and environment destruction and climate crisis. No, we don't have to go through the litany here, but the point is that this Ubuntu idea, or this what Thich Nhat Hanh talks about in terms of interbeing. Charles Eisenstein also talks about this beautifully. This notion that there is something, some being that emerges when we are truly sitting in circle like
Mm,
this. And there is something that is not just you and me and whoever else we're sitting with, but there is not just the addition of these, but there's a master here among us that's in the center. A master in the sense of, not one who controls, but one
Right.
who we can learn from and with. And the wisdom is something that is collective among us.
The
And
essence of
ability to,
beingness. Mm.
exactly, that's an interbeing, and to celebrate that. How can we interbe and
Yes.
interbecome? These are all, but we tend to be so brought up in our frameworks of our individualism that, wait, I'm here, you're there, and that's it. But how are we truly, from quantum physics, we know that we are not separate, and that's an illusion,
Yeah. We're
right?
all a
And
particle.
we are not only interdependent but entangled, or as
Mm.
uh,
Intertwined.
there's a nice word that was coined. The author slips my mind right now, but in the 1970s, called intertwingled. And I
Mm.
like that word. There's
Mm.
a little magic to it, right? Entangled sounds, like something's wrong with your hair in the
Right.
morning. And I would know what I'm talking about if I had more hair. But the point is, uh, intertwingled is so nice, this
Mm.
sense. And Thich Nhat Hanh talks about, my right hand, because I'm right-handed, can do things my left hand can't.
Right.
But my right hand doesn't think that it's better than my left hand.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't make fun of my left hand, and my left hand isn't jealous of my right hand. It's not jealous of these things. And then whenever I need to do things, they come completely harmoniously together to
Yes.
do things together. And there's never okay, you don't know how to do this. There's not that going on, because
No.
it's one.
There's the support of one another, right? The left hand knows, okay, the right hand's been
Exactly.
working hard. Let's give it some support.
So, and when we're in an interbeing, we can know that we are all different hands or feet or eyes or whatever we want to be of some being that we are humaning through,
Yes.
right? And to see this, it's really a different way of seeing the world, and it's not the individualism. It doesn't mean we have to give up either our privacy or our personal identity, not at all, or the fact that I like vanilla and the other person might like
Yeah.
chocolate. That's fine. We don't have to all
Yes. We're
doesn't
not
mean
asking people to become the Star Trek Borg,
no,
right? As part of the
exactly,
collective and mindless,
exactly,
we're asking you to
exactly.
bring your essence. In other
That's
words,
right.
the world is a smorgasbord. It's a buffet. Bring
That's right.
your ingredient to the
That's
table.
right. That's right. And this is where the orchestra or the jazz
Hmm.
ensemble, where you hear
Yeah.
the piccolo, all of a
Yeah.
sudden, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, you can hear it. Oh my goodness, there it is. And then you hear the triangle, which comes in. It's very important.
Yes,
You know,
exactly.
it's not,
Exactly.
so everyone has something to contribute. Everyone. And we don't have to say, I'm going to try to contribute now, or now I'm going to say something important. Gosh, that's like trying to go to the party with that expectation, right?
Yes, yeah.
But it's again allowing that the moment will tell you almost, here's something where I can step forward. Here's something where I can say, where I can be a part, where I can, and finding one's tribe.
Yeah.
Finding, because you know what, it's not that we can always work with all conditions, with all people.
Right.
Some places where we don't fit very well, but finding those who celebrate us and with whom we can celebrate life, that's very important.
Mm.
That's very important.
I'm reminded of a movie back in 2007 called August Rush. And it's
Hmm.
about an orphan who literally can hear the music in the corn and the wind and everything. He's a
Oh,
prodigy. He can transform anything into music. But he believes that if he gets to play his music, he will reunite with his parents. And with the parents, they don't even know he's alive because taken away at birth. And he runs from the orphanage, and he gets picked up by Robin Williams, who's a baddie who wants to commercialize him, but
hmm.
it's where he ends up at Juilliard, and they recognize what he's got, and it's like he can hear like the cars going over the gate, everything transforms into music for him, and that's how he creates. And there he is, creating the symphony to which his parents find him, because they're both separately drawn to it. So he, through music and his belief that it would reunite to his parents, sent out into the ether this rhythm, this vibration that they both picked up on and found their way to that one source of energy. And we can all do that if we're willing to listen to the different sounds of life and not just expecting to hear the same sounds symphonized over and over.
Oh, that really moves me, Sarah. This is so much more than a metaphor.
Mm,
As you say, we can do this,
mhm.
but it will take a different learning, a different schooling, a different,
Heart, soul set to
yeah,
change the mindset.
exactly,
Yes.
exactly. I think in terms of the mindset,
Mm,
which is the know why. Sometimes we
mm.
don't even know why, but at least the mindset should help us get there. At least to know what. Yeah,
Right.
what are we doing? Okay, we get taught that in school, June, and often we get taught a skill set too, which is a little bit about the know-how.
Hmm.
Not so often do we get taught the heart set, which is
No.
a care why
Yeah.
competency and a care how, right? And then there's the soul set that you have mentioned as well, which is this connection, what I've been calling syntony, or this connection which brings forth that allowance of humaning well,
Mm.
allowing that through that connection to source. We don't have that in our schooling. We're often taught not to trust our
Right.
intuition, or not to listen to nature, or that animals, plants, let alone the cosmos, there's no soul there. They don't have feelings. Other people don't have feelings. I mean, often that's the way we get just put into these frames that are, well, for me, exactly, when we're machining. We're not humaning.
And we're pitting
We
people
don't
against
human.
each other too,
That's right.
you
Well,
know,
exactly,
mm.
exactly, because it ends up being this
Competition
competition.
mm.
Exactly. And
instead
if
of
that's not a
collaboration.
conversation, that's
Hmm.
debate. But we have
Yes.
debate societies in school. We don't
Yeah.
have conversations.
No.
There's a little more about the conversation, the World Cafe, conversation cafes, things of that sort. Juanita Brown, David Isaacs, and others have been doing things like that. It's beautiful. And how can we? I think people are yearning for that.
Yes.
But there's a side of them that says, yeah, but that's, I would be too soft. I got to be tough. I got to
Hmm.
be, I got to be, I need to be able to be an army of one, take care of myself, et cetera, et cetera. And I tell you, after 37 years in the martial arts, that is not the way. There's a yin and a yang. There's
Yes.
the yang, which might be the strength and the power and the projection of energy, fajin, right? And then there's the yin, which is the flow, the reception, and at the higher levels of all martial arts, whether they're yang styles or yin styles, these two come together. They come together, and you learn how to be in flow. And when you're engaging in a martial engagement, if it's truly an art, and martial art, and I don't mean the stuff in the movies or the
Right.
stuff in
Not Marshall Kill.
no, my
Right.
goodness, but an
Hmm.
art, it's not about violence at all. No more than a firefighter is like an arsonist.
Right.
I mean, a
Or
firefighter is not
no,
in
the
the same
police,
right
this is
about.
where I think we've gone astray.
Hmm,
We're living our life in defense. We look
right,
to the martial arts, we looked at as being able to take someone out, get them
right,
before they get me.
yeah,
And, it's all about my protection, me, myself. And it doesn't
yeah.
matter who gets hurt along the way. And we've
Oh
seen how
goodness,
that cripples humanity and how it
literally.
destroys the heart and completely obliterates the soul.
Yeah. No. I mean, it can't be.
No.
Really, it's about fostering those dynamics of life and
Yeah.
those dynamics of uh, being of energies, truly energy. At the basis of all martial arts is qigong, right? Which is
Yes. Yes.
in which energy flows.
Which is
And
not about fast hoo ha ha. It's all about the
no,
slow being
yes, indeed,
presence in the flow, right? So
right,
patience and take your time, which is also
yes,
something we're not taught as humans. Have
no.
patience, take your time, follow the breath.
Indeed, and haste makes waste. All those
Yes,
things. I mean, the
yes.
point is, it's not about being berserk. It's not about
No,
just. It's about being, and it's not about over control. See, it's the
right.
interesting thing also that I've learned in the martial arts. If you're rigidly in control, you can't flow with the moments, right? And so it's about knowing certain moves so that you can be in flow, so that you can be in responsibility. But there's a
Yes.
responsibility in being
Yes.
in responsibility.
Yes.
And prior to that, there's a sense ability, which, is being sensible in that sense
Mm.
as well. And there's a dance in the end. It is truly a dance. I think in the end, it's all a dance of being and becoming, or the music, or the conversation of life. All of these are different ways of expressing this
Mm.
confluence, the flow that we can co-create. Because whether we overtly acknowledge it or not, we are flowing from moment to moment always.
Yes.
And the question is, what is the narrative that we're flowing with? And how are we authoring that, co-authoring that?
Hmm.
Right? Because if we don't actually pay attention to what narrative are we contributing to with our thoughts and our actions and our communications with others, then the narrative we contribute to might be one that we actually don't like.
Hmm.
So how do we contribute to this collective narrative of life in a way that uplifts, right? In a way that is something that we wish to be part of. And this authorship is important, because if we don't, then very easily, still in our world, unfortunately, somebody might author our part for
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
And this is the thing. How do we engage with those who we can truly co-author and
Right.
not be overwritten by others, being aware of that, guarding against also being overwritten, but at the same time not overwriting others either.
Right.
Right? It's
Alignment.
indeed.
Finding the yin yang, the balance.
Yeah.
You know, um, I'm a Libra. People think that you want to have the scales perfectly solid. No, they have to constantly always be going up and down. What we don't want are the
Yes.
extremes, the highs and the extreme
Indeed.
lows. It's about keeping the scale in rhythm, in sync, in alignment, in balance. And even
Exactly.
when you're dancing, you want to have your core in balance so that you can twist and twirl without
Exactly.
falling over, right? That's the thing, is find your inner balance, your chakra balance, your soul, heart, spirit, mind balance. And then you'll be able to actually understand the rhythm and how to dance and how to play in it without going off kilter.
Having that play,
Mm,
that play is so important. As you say,
yeah.
that in the cardiologists will say a healthy heart dances,
Hmm.
because they find that when a heartbeat is very, very regular, it's actually a sign that the person is close to death.
Oh, mm,
So the healthy heart dances. There's
right.
always some variation around. This is part of life in this way.
Yeah.
So being able to have that, oscillation around a norm, but having a healthy path, but
Yes.
not being so meticulously on it. There's this little expression, to people who can do more than just talk the talk.
Hmm.
They walk the talk.
Hmm.
Okay, there are people who walk the talk, but only for show.
Right.
When they go home, they don't do that.
Right.
There are people who live the walk, and they live the walk. But you can tell it's the way they are. It's
Yes.
just they are that. They're not trying. It's just who they are. But I've encountered people who live the walk with a very holier than thou attitude. And
Yeah.
it's like, well, I lived, because I've trained with so and so forth, and I
Yes.
have written so many books, whatever.
Yeah.
There, and that doesn't empower. And then I found people who dance the path.
Hmm.
I
And
love
they
them.
invite people to dance with them just by
Indeed.
dancing the path. Yeah.
Indeed, they don't
Mm.
hold it so. It's not
No.
like they're in a seminary of like,
Right.
well, here's the right way of walking, of living this walk. Nah. But they play with it, and at the
Right.
same time, they're on a path, and they
Yeah.
invite, as you say, they
Yeah.
invite,
And
and
they
you can
don't,
dance with them, and you can laugh.
they don't dictate how you should dance.
Right.
Right? Just come
Right.
dance with them. Move to the music the way
That's
it
right.
gets you to move. There is no wrong move.
That's
There's just
that's
getting
so
to the groove.
important. That's right. That's right. This idea that you can't fail as long as you show up and participate.
Yes. That's the big thing,
And
isn't it? Show
maybe
up.
you do some things that create more cacophony than harmony. And that's okay. Then you are held by the group and they can help you remember. That's what I like the word remember, because it's remember, bringing membership back into,
Mm,
right?
mm.
You can remember your story. And this is a big part of Ubuntu, of course, right? Where you have forgotten your melody and you go do something or something that's aberrant. And the community reminds you of your song,
Mm.
reminds you of your song in the larger community,
Yes.
you know. And I
Yes.
think this so being able to say, you know, it's okay if I make mistakes. I will be held here. I won't be judged. That's the other thing. So
Mm.
often we're like, oh, I make a mistake, I'm going to be judged. I'll be sent to the principal's office. I'll be, you know, given a ticket. I'll be, you know, okay. So how do we have this allowance,
Mm.
right? When we know that people are trying and they're not, but you know, not abusing, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. It's self-forgiveness is huge.
mm,
But what are you forgiving? Are you forgiving yourself for being non-compliant because you can't fit into that mold? Or are you
mm,
forgiving yourself for not allowing yourself to be in flow and to learn? I've landed on my ass more times than I can think of. But the challenge was to get back up and go, okay, that didn't work. Now which direction? Right?
exactly.
And that's the thing. I've learned how to dance now without falling over, because I've
Mm,
learned how to tune into the rhythm, my universe's rhythm, the
mm,
rhythm around me, not the dictation of how I should dance.
right. Right. I mean, again, this is the, if you're trying, if you're efforting, you know, Yoda has things to say about that. There is no try. But you
Just
know,
do.
if that's right, you know, I mean, but there's truth in this. This comes back to what Alan Watts was talking about how the tree leaves. It's just what it does.
Yes.
Once I'll tell you a quick story here. Once I was on a trip on a plane, and a gentleman who must have been in his late 70s um, came to sit beside me, and there was a bit of confusion. He thought I was in his seat, but anyway, we got that worked out. I offered him to sit where I was, but he just wanted to be in his right seat, of course.
Hmm.
He was obviously nervous about flying, so I
Hmm.
talked with him. It turns out he's a beekeeper, and he knew he was going to be a beekeeper when he was 5 years old.
Hmm.
Wow. I mean, I, I needed to talk to this man. What did he learn from the bees? He spent his whole life and he still was a beekeeper now in his late 70s. So it turns out that he found out he was a beekeeper because he was out at a picnic with his parents, and then he was off by a tree and bees started to land on him, and he just held his arms out, and soon he was covered in bees and they didn't sting him, and it
Right.
felt amazing. He felt like he was being hugged, and it
Yes.
felt warm and moving and tickling, and but not bothersome.
Hmm.
And then all of a sudden all the bees left.
Yeah.
His parents were freaking out because they were concerned, but he was okay. And from then on, he loved the bees. They all hugged him. Oh, amazing experience, of course. And anyway, in our conversation, he was talking to me about the intelligence of the bees and all of that, and the collective intelligence, beautiful. And he said to me, so in any ecosystem where bees are present, all of the animals and plants that are there know what the bees do, and they count on the bees to do it. So without really thinking very much, I said, I wonder what it is that in any ecosystem where humans are present, all of the animals and plants know that we do and count on us to do. And we just sat in silence for a while because nothing occurred to us.
Hmm.
What do they all know that we do without like destroy? They know that we destroy the
Right.
ecosystem. Okay, so what is it they count on us to do when we're there, and they know that here's a human being we know. I asked this question of my daughter, Kalia, when she was something like 11 or so, and she went away and thought about it a bit, and then she came back and said, I think we're the connectors. I think we connect life with life.
Hmm.
And I said, so tell me more about this. It sounds interesting. What?
Species with species. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
exactly. He said, well, we are the most versatile
Mm.
of creatures. We can live anywhere on the planet. We can live on the North Pole, the South Pole, underwater. We
Mm,
can fly. We
mhm.
know what it is like for animals that fly because we can be in the air. So with our technologies, we've done all these things. So we can empathize with all beings. Therefore, we're the bridge,
Yes.
and we can connect life with life. I'm still sitting with, I tell you, my daughter is my teacher so often.
Hmm.
Um, so that idea of how are we connecting life with life, and how are we also being connected by
Hmm.
others who connect us with life.
Right.
So listening to those who connect us with life, and then ourselves connecting others with life means just with vibrancy, with those what we've talked about throughout your show,
Hmm.
with this sense of trueness, authenticity, and of vibrancy. Um, I think this is for me was a nice. It continues to be a quest of how to human well to connect life with life.
It's like Cuban Gold, Alison Goldwyn, you know,
Mm,
um, the synchronicity. I always get her name wrong there on the thing, but
mm,
it's about bringing the world together in one huge big global party of unison.
mm,
And that's always been her calling, her passion is to bring us together in celebration of each other, of our differences, of our wonderful cultures, of our different flavors of life, our different experiences of life. It's not pitting one against the other, which has been. It's about dancing with one another to each other's beat of life, and to understand that there is no one dance that's better than the other. They're all an expression of life. And the more we immerse ourselves in that expression, the more we immerse ourselves in those cultural dances of life, the more we understand and not compare, but wish to collaborate and have more compassion for, and wish to immerse with, because then we understand the abundance that we have in our
exactly.
collectiveness.
Exactly. When I was in high school, for a while, it was when my father was teaching. He was working at the United Nations, at the United Nations Institute for Training and Research in New York City. And I went to the United Nations International School, UNIS. And there are kids from all over the place, professors from all over the place, teachers rather, there. And I think the biggest education I got there, the subject matter was wonderful. I learned a lot of things
Mhm.
as well. I don't want to say that I didn't, but truly it was at lunchtime. It was when we would be in the cafeteria and we would sit with kids from all over the place,
Yes.
because your relationship with food is somehow
Yes.
very culturally particular. The
Connective,
people,
connective. It's
yeah,
the
and the
glue.
people who will not touch the food with their hands
Yeah.
because that's not correct. The
Mhm.
others who are all in their food with their
Yeah.
hands,
Yes.
and there are others who, if you burp after your meal, it's a sign that you
You
appreciated the
enjoyed your
food.
meal. Yeah.
That's right. And others, goodness gracious, you
Yeah.
don't burp at the table. So, but what we had fun with that as kids, we're
Mm.
like, what are you doing with that? And what's
Yeah.
your relationship with this one? And then we would like, wow, that's interesting. So there was no judgment in it, you
No,
see. And I
no.
think this is where we, in adulting and forgetting how to, just to live with that awe,
Yeah.
and to live into the mystery, and to, without the expectation or the judgment. Discernment, I think, is important. But
Yes.
discernment is different than judgment. I mean, I
Yeah.
need to discern if this is a hot thing and I shouldn't put my hand on it or not.
Yeah.
All right, that's a good. But I'm not judging that it's hot. I'm not. That's not a judgment like it's bad. And that we do too often with each other.
Mm.
And I
Boundaries are okay because
yeah.
it's matched vibe. I'm not going to
Mm,
have somebody with their negative vibration try and penetrate my positive vibration. There's a boundary
mm,
there. They have to rise
mhm,
up to my vibration if they wish to communicate with me. But I traveled, I think I've done about 25, 26 countries, and I did that more in my youth. And coming from England, a very pearls and tweed and restricted
mm,
lifestyle. Then my
mhm,
mother and I moved to South Africa, and that was whoa, a totally different life. And then I started traveling. I My nectar was meeting the different people,
mm,
sharing the food at the table, the exuberance and the joy of life, seeing the common denominators that we all had in common, but looking at the wonderful flavors of life and the experiences of life, it was truly a wonderful experience. And I think if
Mm,
anybody and everybody could just get out of their little world and expand their world, they would actually see that we have so much more in common than we have different,
indeed,
right?
indeed. You know, but it's not easy
Mm,
because, again, we have to. I have to learn. It's not just helping others. I have to learn also how to move in these steps. There's a beautiful science fiction story by the author David Zindel. The book is called The Broken God, and in it there's a being from another planet who is helping humans.
mhm,
They're like, my vision of them is kind of silly because the way they describe them is they're soft and furry and big, and it seemed like the snuffleupagus from
mhm,
Sesame Street. But the point is, they are very wise, and they help humans move through the four stages of liberation. Sounds very Buddhist, but they have these stages are the art of plexity, and the first stage of the art of plexity is the simplex. It goes from simplex, complex, multiplex, and omniplex. And the simplex person or alien can only see things according to their worldview. They
mm,
know that there are people who who see things in different ways, but they think those poor devils, if only they would have my religion, or if they only would have
mm,
my way of being, they would be saved. I need to save them. I need to convert them. Whatever. That's a simplex way that is impositional, right? The multiplex says there are many different ways in the world, and I can appreciate the different ways. And maybe I have lived for a while in Guatemala, and I've found their ways different from where I was born in Switzerland, and then I can so you can move, but for the complex person to be able to shift these worldviews, it's like shedding skin for a snake. You move from one into the next, and then you become a different one. It's beautiful, but it's linear. The multiplex person can hold several worldviews at the same time,
mhm,
even if they're contradictory, right?
mhm.
So in one culture, if you steal a loaf of bread, you lose your hand,
Yeah,
right? And in another culture, that would be considered absolutely violent. You can't take off somebody's limb because of stealing a loaf of bread. I mean, and you can see how both can be right in their own context, in their own
mm,
ways, in their own life, in their own frames. You can see. I'm not trying to say right or wrong. I'm not going to get into that. That was a very tricky area to walk into, so I'm
right.
going to
Yes.
extract myself from
Point
that.
of views.
That's right. So they can have different points of views around, how do we, you can acknowledge
Yes.
them. And then there's the omniplex, which apparently is more like, the Buddha mind, or the Christ mind, or this it's the individual who comes along once, in millennia to hold all worldviews at the same time, where you can understand, what's Nazism, and you can understand where they're coming from and empathize with that. I have difficulty with that, but being able to understand all the flavors of being and becoming, but understanding that there are people legitimately in simplex frames of mind, and not to say that they're better or
Mm,
worse than somebody who's in a multiplex or an omniplex, but they're different. So to expect people to be immediately in a multiplex frame is, I think, difficult, or maybe unreasonable, even to say,
yes.
why don't we all just hold hands and we know we're one.
Kumbaya. Right.
It's
Yes.
difficult. It's difficult. So
Yeah.
how do we then allow for the movement from the simplex to the complex, which tends to be just the acknowledgement of at least another way of being that's
Mm.
legitimate, and then maybe from there to the multiplex.
And that's more
So
to do with life experience. The more you immerse
indeed,
yourself in life, the more you open up to what life is all about, what the
that's right.
experience of
And
being
other
a
ways of
human is
being.
about. Mm.
Right, right, right. If you're very insular and very, how can I say this, inbred in a way in your belief systems, then that's all you're going to know, and everything else is going to be full of fear. It's
Yes.
quite so.
We've
It's
seen a
quite
great deal of evidence of that in 2020,
right,
and what did it do? It just completely and utterly divided like a sharp
right,
knife. And
right,
where has that fear got them?
right.
Fear
And we're
begets fear and becomes more fearful, and it
exactly.
consumes them and
And we're
breaks them
starting to
down.
see, Sarah, that now there's a bankruptcy, as we were saying at the beginning
Yes.
uh, this conversation, there's a bankruptcy of that way, because now we truly see that we are interdependent as a
Mm.
species on this planet, not just with each other, but with all life
Yes.
on this planet. And we have to begin acting that way. That's the actionism that you call
Yes.
for, to really begin acting truly as a planetary being,
Yeah.
um, and not as I don't know, as a very parochial being,
Right,
right?
exactly.
Yeah,
As the universe told me, I'm going to shake you up, to wake you up, for you to
right.
stand up, to change it up, but to grow up. And that
That's it.
double entendre there is that we need to grow up as human beings. It's not all about
Yes.
you,
Yeah,
it's about us as a
that's right.
human race here on this beautiful gift of a planet, along with the cosmos source energy guiding us. And when we can choose to be collectively as one, each individually bringing our beautiful gift to the table, then we will actually understand what that beautiful source of energy is all about. And really what the gods are all about, because it's all about the word love. When you love yourself, you love who you are, why you are, what you're doing, and you're doing it from a place of love. You're sharing that love out, which then resonates out as a hug, loving others, and the domino effect will happen. But we are the solution we seek.
Yeah.
We just
We,
need to embrace that.
we are the ones we have been waiting for, as they say.
Yes,
Yeah,
we've just been
yeah,
waiting
yeah,
to
yeah.
step up,
That's
step
right.
into actionism. We can't talk about it anymore. We really need to do it.
Yeah,
And
and these are the questions, I think, Sarah, for us to also think about in terms of our practices, right? We were talking about how do we do this in a day-to-day
yes,
frame, and the question is, do we show up with arms open when change or difference is at our doorstep? Do we show up ready to embrace, but warily, because there are some things that we might embrace which might not be healthy for us? So we just, but at least as the first gesture is like, okay, there's change, there's difference, is that I'm at least open to that? Or do we show up with arms crossed,
mm.
uh, ready to brace ourselves? So
Brace
the
yourself
difference
or
between,
prove it to me. Prove it
right,
to me. Yeah.
right. So the difference between embracing and bracing. Embracing is open, and bracing
Yes.
against things that happen. So frame. What are we doing with our arms in
Yes.
on our way?
Yeah.
Um, and there's again the everyday shamanism, the alchemy of the moment. How can we transmute this, even if it is something that seems threatening, into something that is empowering, that is loving, uh, not forcing it, and also knowing if it is something that will be harmful to us,
Right.
knowing when to leave, and that we shouldn't try to transmute everything, because there are things that may be harmful for us, and we don't want to put people in harm's
Yeah.
way. You don't
Step
want to
by
stand in.
step.
Yeah,
Step by
yeah.
step.
You don't
Right?
jump in front of the train and say, "Okay, I'm going to transmute this into a," you don't. It's
Yeah.
not a good idea.
No. Splat.
Right. Yes, indeed.
The thing I think is the willingness to be vulnerable, in
Hmm.
trust that the source, the universe is with you, but with a good dose of common sense.
Indeed. Indeed, exactly, right? Yeah, no, don't just throw yourself
Yeah,
to the wind,
exactly.
but yes, yes, and knowing that in the bigger phrase. See, I think this is in the balance of things. You talk about the Libra
Mm,
balances, the scales, the balance of things. My father is big on this idea that coherence is the patterning of the universe.
mhm.
The universe is a coherence generating and coherence seeking dynamic itself. It's a process and we're part of that. So when things seem to be, you know, uh, driving us out of balance, that tends to be, as we talked about, that oscillation around a
Mm,
path. That tends to be the momentary thing. If we overfeed that, it can actually drive us into destabilization.
yeah,
But
yeah,
the general pattern of an evolutionary dynamic is always towards greater coherence, greater interdependence, right? Greater confluence flowing together, right? So when we listen into that, and we then find how can we be part of that narrative, not
mm,
the narrative of destabilization, then we can choose how we author our moment,
yeah.
moment by moment. Yeah.
I mean, we have disruption in our life because that is part of the change. It's getting rid of the old, allowing for the new. You know, we can't plant seeds in a contaminated field. So we need to till the field and turn the soil over and clean it out so that we can plant new seeds. So if disruption is happening, it's because it needs to happen to clear out the old so that we can plant the seeds of
Indeed.
truth that need to grow. And we
Indeed.
all need to be those farmers, don't we?
Indeed. There's so many beautiful metaphors exactly like that. I mean, people are saying, why do we have this kind of thing? How can this be anyway positive? This whole catastrophe that was
Mhm.
2020. I mean, people talked about it that way. But this is also in a vibrational frame a shaking apart.
Yes.
This is
Mhm.
this is part of the processes that you've talked about. The shake up, and that allows for the falling away of calcified scales,
Yeah.
that are not serving us anymore. And to try to build them back in is a mistake. So the idea now is to say, what ways are going to allow us to move with greater thrivability and not with the kind of rigidity of control that we had tried to make in
Right.
controlling our environment and controlling
Yes.
each other and in controlling life. Now it really is about this orchestra, about this dance. But it's a different way, Sarah. It's a different, and we need to have a different myth as well. The myth of the lone hero that we talked about
Yeah.
before. We've had, the Superman and the Batman, who happens to be one of my favorites. But still, now they have much more of the collective
Right.
heroes coming along. We
Yes.
see the Avengers and the Justice League and the
Yes.
Guardians of the
Yeah.
Galaxy, and you see these groups, right?
Yes.
And often in the films they say, "How are we going to do this?" And one of them says, "Well, the only way to do this is together." That kind of thing is a
Yes.
new narrative. We need to actually live that into our own lives as
It's the
well.
same like with the Avatar, the movie, which they have another
Right?
one coming out.
Indeed.
The respect of life and land and what it brings to you, the tree of life, which is the connection to the souls.
The
Um,
interdependence.
yeah, no one person, it's like a village. A village will not survive with everybody just thinking of I.
That's right. Indeed.
It needs collectively everybody to come together to make that village strong. And that has been the
Yeah.
message all along, and is one that we need to listen to and adhere to, because that's the only way we can move forward. I bring my
Yeah.
instrument forward to play, whether I'm jamming, whether I'm in an orchestra. This
Yeah.
is my contribution. It's not about what life can do for you, it's about how you participate in your life and bring it to the collective as a solution, as a
And there's a
resource.
different sense of identity in there,
Yeah.
isn't there, Sarah? Carolyn Merchant, who is a political philosopher and feminist out of Berkeley, California, she would write about the egocentric, homocentric, and ecocentric ethics. And she would say that the egocentric ethic is the dominant one in our materialist, consumerist societies, where I just need to look out for number one. I
Yeah.
look out for myself.
Yeah.
And if everybody did like I did, we wouldn't have any problems in the world, because everybody taken care. We wouldn't have to take care of the disenfranchised people, because everybody be responsible for themselves. So just look out for yourself. I'll look out for me. That's the ethic, right? And it's tight. It's closed. It has its own reasoning. Then there's the homocentric, which is we need to safeguard the planet for future generations, et cetera, et cetera. But the idea there is that the orangutan doesn't have any intrinsic rights in this framework. It's we need to conserve orangutans because future, our offspring, our grandchildren should see living orangutan, not just pictures of them. We want to conserve them for ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
not because they have their any intrinsic rights. So it's very
Right.
homocentric. Then there's the ecocentric frame, which is we're a part of a web of life, but it involves an expansion of sense of identity. She had this conversation between an egocentric person and the ecocentric person, where the egocentric person was cutting down the rainforests in the Amazon to be able to create a shopping mall.
Right.
And the ecocentric person had tied themselves to the tree with chains, and they were saying, you chop down the tree, you have to go through me first. And they had the conversation, more of an argument, and they said, what are you doing, said the egocentric person making the mall. I'm bringing technology, I'm bringing jobs, we're bringing modern convenience to the people who are living here. We're connecting them to the world, where you're standing in the way of progress. What tree has ever asked you to protect it? And the ecocentric person said, yeah, but I'm not just a human being trying to protect the rainforest. I'm part of the rainforest trying to
Mm.
protect itself. Boom. A different sense of who I am. I am part of this narrative.
I am the voice for it.
That's right. And if we can start to think in this much larger collective way, that I am not just me here, but I'm part of this place, this being, this ecosystem, this village, whatever we're part of, right? And this is who I am,
Right.
right? That's a different I than the small I of
Yeah.
just me here battling it out.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. We are the grain of sand. We're the drop of water in the ocean. We're all part of this collective. However egocentric you want to be, we're
Mhm.
all in it together. And, take away a person. This is again what 2020 did. Take away a person's money, take away their power when it comes to their health. It's we're all in that together, and it's you can't buy yourself into any
Yeah.
situation, not a true one. And this is about participation.
Mm.
And it's the interaction, the participation, the responsibility of our own actions that we're bringing forth to the collective, and this is the time to do it. So my dear, I'd love to talk to you, carry on forever, and we're going to have you
We
back
could.
again, but
You're welcome.
I do need to move on, as much as I would love to stay here. So can you tell
Right.
people how to get hold of you? I know you have the Balta Lanafree Center
Yes.
and the Laszlo Institute, if you can tell us about that. And you've
Sure.
also have the Earth's Wives Center, if you can tell us about
Right.
that and how people can get hold of you.
Let me mention a few of those things here, a few hats. But the Bertelante Center for the Study of Systems Science, that is, although it's based in Vienna, Austria, it is a global think, link, and do tank, where we're looking at how can a systems perspective, systems thinking, and systems design provide responses to the challenges of humanity today. And so people who are interested in the projects and initiatives that have to do with a systemic, holistic, living systems approaches, right? Not just computer systems, but
Mm-hmm.
living systems approaches to the interconnected set of challenges and problems. Um, that's one of the places that is working on that. The Laszlo Institute of New Paradigm Research, which you've already discussed a bit with my father,
Mm-hmm.
I'm also working there as a director of research. And so if there are any people who are interested in research initiatives that have to do with kind of this new paradigm thought based in science, but understanding our fundamental interconnectedness and
Mm-hmm.
interdependence that comes from the understanding in quantum physics that looks as we talked about entanglement and intertwinglement. So if there are any interest in that, that's a wonderful place to explore. And I'll mention two other places quickly. The Earthwise Center with Anna Luce Smitsman and Kurt Barnes is a resource and an area of engagement that offers programs and educational activities and indeed explorations of things, including new currency engagements that actually value life as the medium of celebration, and then what are the ways in which we can augment that worth, our net worth, in terms of living systems again. So Earthwise Center has some interesting things there. The place where I'm working here in Argentina, just to leave you with this, is called Vivir Agradecidos. And it's in Spanish, it means grateful living or living in gratitude. And it's part of a network for grateful living, which abbreviates to ANGEL, a network for grateful living, ANGL, and inspired by the work of Brother David Stendhal Rast, who is a Benedictine monk and whose life is dedicated to a life of gratitude. And his, his approaches have to do with simplifying and really valuing and trusting in the universe and trusting in the process of creation and living into the mystery. He has a stop, look, and go. That's the
Mm.
person. Stop, That's part of the listening, right? Look is to really take stock, or to be appreciative of where we are, and then go. Now act. The actionism is very
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm working currently, and I'm working on projects that have to do with evolutionary learning ecosystems, and communities, evolution learning communities that form the evolutionary learning ecosystem. So if there's interest in that, I'm at your disposal as well.
Well, you're going to have to come back and we're going to have to talk about that because there's so much more we can talk about.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to quickly go through the site. So it's earthwisecenter.org. And the other one is www.bcsss.org. We also find you on Wikipedia, and then the Laszlo Institute ingressvisual.com and research areas. And also people can find you on LinkedIn and Alexander Laszlo, Laszlo. And is there anywhere else they can find you? Facebook. They can find you at Earthwise Center. And of course, you've got a lot on YouTube as well. So
I must say, Sarah, that the Laszlo Institute actually, I might have been a bit premature there, but anybody who's interested can find that information there, on the understanding that it's actually a pre-release
yeah.
right? So we're still working on the site, and it's not yet a fully public domain. So I think it's okay if people go and explore that already, but it's not
fully operational.
That's correct, right? As long as people take it with that grain of salt, I'm
Right,
sure
right. In development, right.
Yes.
Which, that's another thing, is that we put out what we have already and we can expand on it as we go, right? That's, don't wait for things to be perfect and all perfectly aligned. No, it is take the steps,
Right.
do what you need to do. The expansion will happen as it's meant to happen.
We are human becomings,
Yes.
more than just human beings.
Yes.
It's good to be, but it's also, we are works in progress.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And to step into our humanity.
Right.
May I ask that you close us out with some flute?
Yeah, sure. Let me take my big stick. Do you think I should keep my headphones on for this?
That's up to you. Yeah, I think so. Let's just
It's
see
going
if
to
it
go right
picks up.
through this. I wonder if that's going to be too close. You tell me. If not, you just wave and I'll unplug.
Right.
Sarah, it may be just me, but I am not hearing you well here. don't know why that is. I see that you're unmuted, but you're coming through very poorly. Let me try unplug. Go now. Well, thank you so much for this time and this conversation. I enjoyed it very much. And I also learned so much with you. And again, the learning is not just the learning of the ideas, but it was a learning of life. And I think this is the dance, the music making. And thank you for this opportunity. Okay, we'll do this again. All right then. Cheers.
We hope you enjoyed the show. We look forward to bringing you more shows. Please go to selfdiscoverymedia.com/shows and you will see the incredible lineup of genres and shows that we have for you. We are here to make a difference in your life. Thank you for listening.